Hello, good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining in for yet another tech drop-in session hosted by Veritas. It's been a while. Last month we had a few other public events that we attended or we presented, and we did not have a tech drop-in last month, but now we are getting back on this series. So I'm really excited to present yet another session for the October series. As we go forward, a little bit of housekeeping. This session is being recorded. We have the question and answers section included as part of the Zoom link. So please feel free to type in as many questions as you have on the Q&A section. Chat is not something that we are monitoring actively, but question and answers, we have active monitoring happening. So please use the Q&A section for asking the questions. Don't wait for the questions till the end of the session. Make sure you chime in as many questions as possible. We will try to answer the questions as we go. And if there are some questions that we want to discuss on the fly, we will bring that in as part of our discussion. Ranga, if you could move to the next slide, please. Thank you. As I said, the best question today is going to get a $25 Amazon voucher. So keep those questions coming in. Make sure your questions come in nice and fast. If we are not able to answer any of your questions, don't worry. We will come back to them after the session finishes, and we'll reach out to you in person with a response. So with that said, I'm going to start with this session. So when I am talking to my customers, and when across our region, what I'm hearing is the 3-year strategy of transformation for customers across finance, healthcare, and real estate. The 3-year strategy of transformation has suddenly come down into 3 months window, and it has been an obvious outcome of what the pandemic has caused all of us through. So suddenly everybody is now talking about a very different paradigm of transformation. So the real estate companies or the real estate market space is now evolving towards a complete co-working space sort of a model. Now I'm sure it's not a surprise that initially we would want a dedicated office, but now suddenly we are talking about shared spaces. The financial industry is now completely gone in a direction where they want the tokenization and multi-factor authentication being the strongest piece of their IT infrastructure, and then also make sure that their applications are integrated with all of these security mechanisms, because the access from outside is going to be a lot more than within the trusted network. And of course, the healthcare. Now, healthcare has been transformed significantly, and with the pandemic, in-person visits are always going to be avoided going further. So the telehealth and the infrastructure that is required to run tele-based or remote-based doctor visits is coming to a forefront. Now, here are a few examples that we are hearing that the transformation perspective before pandemic and after pandemic have changed. Now, as we go along, the other perspective that I've heard is cloud. Now, cloud transformation is nothing new for any of us. We have seen cloud transformation happening for the last 5-6 years or even more, and the different forms of cloud transformation. But the way the adoption has gone through, the transformation is one, but the adoption and uptake of a particular cloud service or platform has just been phenomenal. And we'll focus a lot on those adoption trends and how we look at Office 365 and Teams specifically as one of those platforms of adoption. Ranga, if you could move to the next slide, please. All right, and what it really boils down into is, with such a change that has happened in such a short time, organizations still look at a platform instead of buying separate point products to do multiple solutions. What they're really looking for is a platform. Now, this platform is predominantly something which is scalable, is dynamic. There is a way that you can integrate with your DevOps and the continuous CI/CD frameworks to ensure that your future is also tied up into automation and made sure that it integrates very well with the platform. And of course, it has to be simple. So that's what we are hearing from our customers. And The reason why this session makes a lot of relevance into that conversation is because the Veritas product portfolio. Ranga, if you could move to the next slide, please. The Veritas product portfolio, as we call it, the enterprise data platform, enterprise data services platform, is giving all the ticks on the key asks. It is open, flexible, making sure we are able to integrate your on-prem solutions, your cloud solutions, as well as your remote or edge solutions coming together under a single pane of management. We have the scalability that a cloud platform provides, and we then tie in back to your core construct of transformation. So the gap between transformation and the adoption is something that the enterprise data services platform gather. Now, how do we do that? How do we really do that? We have our key pillars with availability, protection, and insights. Now, availability is where the Veritas solutions really pull into for high availability and application uptime. We then have the protection portfolio, where we talk about the entire data protection solutions, includes NetBackup and the end-to-end data protection management. And then we also have the insights portfolio, where we had the insights coming in for your digital compliance. Yeah, probably these slides are going faster than I am, but yeah. So the focus today from the A, P, and I, availability, protection, and insights, has been predominantly on protection. Now, the protection portfolio, as I said, is including of NetBackup and the SaaS protection. That's the topic of discussion today. But the protection portfolio is where we have seen a lot of advancements towards not just data protection, but ransomware resiliency also. Now, for today's session, what we're really going to look at is how does the protection portfolio evolve, and how does the NetBackup SaaS protection solution really help you get your Office 365 solutions protected and get that peace of mind that we have covered the entire resiliency as well as ransomware resilient solution. So for that, we are going to run a small presentation and a demonstration after that. The focus is the demonstration. And we have Ranga, who's our solutions engineer based out of Sydney. I have Devid with me, who's going to help us with facilitating the question and answers. And I'm your host today, Amit, based out of Melbourne. So before I hand it over to Ranga, I have a poll for you. The poll should have popped up. And the poll says, what SaaS workloads are you guys investing in? I'm sure Office 365 or M365 is the biggest, but this is just a poll that gets us started. And in the meanwhile, while the poll results come in, I'm going to hand it over to Ranga, and Trudy, if we can get the poll results in another 5 seconds. 75% is Office 365. So I think we are in line to the topic of the session today. Over to you, Ranga.
Thanks very much, Amit. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the session. I hope you can hear me loud and clear. The poll suggests that we are in line and we are doing the right thing, and here it is. So we are talking about SaaS applications and the adoption of those. Now, everyone knows that the futuristic model of delivery would be SaaS, less and less overhead, and then applications can be deployed nice and easy across multi-clouds, and all you're doing is you're responsible for your data, whereas rest of them is taken care by somebody else who can offer you reliability, availability, and so on. So SaaS adoption is skyrocketing, but people are thinking less about protection of those, so it is being overlooked. So just for instance, some stats for you. In the pandemic, during the pandemic and until today, we have about, so as on April 2021, there is about 145 million Teams users. Now imagine the amount of group chats, so one-to-one, one-to-many across the group. So there are so many chats happening, so much amount of data happening round through the clock. So no more a business week as such. So it is even going into the weekend, stretching across the weekends. So it is generating a lot of business amount of data. So there is data at the first place. There is compliance that comes into picture. There is regulatory requirements that comes into picture. So how do you control all of these? Now, 85% of the cloud admins and architects believe that cloud vendors are responsible for data protection. The opposite of that is no, they're only responsible as a SaaS model that you can say he. So as a SaaS model, that they're only it's a shared model, right? So customers and the vendors, they share. It's a shared model, but they are responsible for managing the environment while customer is responsible for uh, their data. So you have to ensure that there is a some kind of an air gap or a 3-to-1 model. So you have to protect your data. You are responsible for your data while the vendor gives you all the availability. They'll ensure that it quickly comes up if there is some issue in their delivery of functionality. So once we have identified and we agree with this, then comes, okay, what can you do? So one, um, some people say, oh, we replicate the data, but replication is not backup. Replication is only good as it gets. So there could be a synchronous or asynchronous replication. Sometimes the corruption also gets replicated. So replication is not backup. So you have to understand that. So replication ensures that there is data available elsewhere, and that is a non-defensible data. Then there is malicious and accidental deletions that happen, and there are so many stories around it. So these are all live stories that is happening, that has happened and continues to happen. So there will be these situations where there is a threat to your SaaS data, and there's loads of people out there who have lost data. So ensure that backups are necessary for these. And then what do we say about ransomware? So it is not the question of if, it's question of when, and the amount of attacks that are happening. So it's there to stay. So we have to ensure that you are resilient against these ransomware attacks. And then so it's not a true backup if you don't have a separate copy. So 3-to-1 style kind of a backup is something that you need and to ensure. So data protection is something that you have to have, and then ensure that it is immutable and you can do beyond backup. So once you have the backup, what else can you do in the backend? So that's what we are going to discuss today. So NSP or NetBackup SaaS Protect, so comes under the NetBackup family. So this is a true SaaS-based functionality that can protect multiple workloads. Now, this is a true enterprise SaaS experience for a reason. It's that we give you a separate tenancy. So in the past, so you see multiple models here in the competition where you would say there is a multi-tenancy. So one single data center is used and multiple tenants are writing to it, whereas here it is your own tenancy in Azure, and you have the choice to use any of their 60 plus data centers, where we can protect the entire M365 across the board. And then it is designed to support petabyte scale environments with unlimited retention. Now this part here, high performance. Now performance is something that you need to understand. So whenever you come in, so there is loads of data that has already been there in the environment. How quickly and efficiently you can transfer this data across into our environment. So that's where we are unique in the market. Quick backups, and then we ensure that it provides you a very good performance or very high performance. Supports multiple M365 domains, so you could have multi-tenancies within O365. And so what we do is we support multi-domains, and also we support multiple data centers. What it means is you could be using this for some kind of a data sovereignty, or for other requirements where local data goes into the local data center. If that is something uh, of your design in your enterprise, then we definitely support it. And then the better part is we can provide you a single pane of search. So one single federated search across your tenancy. So wherever these O365s are installed, we can provide you a federated search across these tenancies. Now, backup schedules. This is something that many customers ask me, hey, can I schedule these backups, or how many backups in a day can I do? Now, there are either one of two answers. So either it is a fixed schedule. Most of the environments are fixed schedules, or they say, oh, we can give you 3 or more, or maybe 4 backups in a day. But what is unique to NSP is you can schedule the backups for certain other users or groups which requires very where the data is very critical. You can choose to set up a continuous data protection. So as and when the data gets updated on the source, it gets protected on the backend. So obviously CDP is something that you don't want to use it across the board. So depending upon the severities, depending upon the priority of what uses what data, you can set up multiple different schedules, many different connectors for your O364 or SaaS workloads. Now, as I said, we support 60 plus Azure data centers. So wherever the Azure data centers are, we support all of those. So in Australia, there are data centers. There is one supposed to be coming in New Zealand, and then world over. Now, if your enterprise is a multi-geo location enterprise, what it means is you can choose to select the local data center for data sovereignty purposes and store the data there or backup the data there, and then use a single search across these geos to search anything for discovery purposes, which we'll talk about it shortly. So what I'll do is I'll pause for a moment. Any questions there, David? All good?
So,
Yes, all good.
So Ranga, there was a question around encryption, but did you want to take it now, or did you want to leave it for a later point?
No, I can take it now. So encryption is something that everybody wants. So they want to ensure that the data is secure and so on. So we support both data encryption in transit and encryption at rest.
Yep.
Both are supported.
Perfect.
Let's go to a quick poll, Trudy. All right. So one is, now there are many organizations who are already in a cloud first strategy or implementing cloud based functionalities. Now IaaS being very popular, but PaaS and SaaS are also taking over. So this question is more specific around SaaS and PaaS. Go ahead and answer the poll and let's see the results. Right, we should be able to see the results shortly. There you go. All right, so much in line to our expectations. So look, there are multiple things that we need to look at. So there is IaaS, which definitely needs protection, and there is SaaS and PaaS that we also protect. So what we are aligning from a Veritas and NetBackup data protection perspective that Amit talked about. Now we support multiple workloads in on-premise or in hybrid clouds, or if it is a SaaS workload or a PaaS workload, we support and we can aggregate it all and a single pane of glass or a single web UI to access any of these data points. So that's where things are headed. Operational simplicity is something that we are saying in the domain, and this is where Veritas NetBackup is heading. So it doesn't matter whether it is a data protection done through NetBackup or a data protection done through a SaaS workload. You have the ability to look through a single window, search through, and access data as and when you want. Flexible, simple operational infrastructure. All right. Moving further. So NetBackup SaaS Protection, key benefits, as I said, it supports the M365 suite in entirety. On top of that, we support OneDrive, we support not OneDrive, the Google Drives, Box, Slack, and Salesforce that is coming through. Now, the first part is flexible. So flexibility in deploying it anywhere, flexibility in creating multiple different connectors to your needs, flexibility in scheduling the backups to different types of users to your needs, and then flexibility in terms of getting the performance there, and then enterprise grade security. If you want to whitelist certain IPs, you can do that. Now, the other flexibility is the end user self-service. So something that I constantly hear from customers, hey, can end users search their own stuff? Can end users perform their own restores? 100%. So that's where this product gives you the complete flexibility and then gives you the ability to e-discover across your tenants wherever you have deployed. Right, so a bit on the architecture. So in a SaaS workload, one thing that you don't want to worry about is configuring anything. So all you need to do is worry about the data. Obviously, you need to configure some bits and pieces to your front end, but nothing at the back end. Everything would be managed by the vendor, and that's exactly what is happening. So this gives you a picture of how Veritas is doing it. So either it'll be in your own tenancy or it'll be in our tenancy. So once we deploy it, we configure it for you. Our professional services will hand over. They can configure the policies for you, or you can go ahead and define it yourself. So that's a bit of an architecture, how it all comes through in the backend, and then that's how NSP functionality functions. Now, there is a deep integration into Azure Active Directory, which means that we can go through many different uh, metadata functionalities within that. It goes deep into granular attributes within the Active Directory. So it's a dedicated tenant, as I said, and then there is security hardening. So there's a private VNet, you can IPv list it. So there's vulnerability scanning. If you can use your MFA or SSO functionalities provided by your SaaS vendors. A bit about licensing. Now, this licensing is very simple. It is a per user per month model. As simple as that. It's a subscription that takes care of everything. However, we are offering it in three different kinds of model. So then one is the enterprise model, and then there's an enterprise plus model and an enterprise elite model. Now, enterprise model has got most of the features covered. When compared to enterprise plus, what you get is the full text search that you're seeing here. Uh, that full text search is something that you get, and then the geo scale out. So for enterprises who have got tenancies across the board in different locations, so there is Azure's LRS and GRS. So LRS is the local redundant functionality, and then the geo redundancy. So if your enterprise needs geo redundancy, so enterprise plus is the option that you want to choose. So for most enterprises, enterprise plus would meet the requirements, or an enterprise would meet it. But for certain enterprises who are very keen saying that, hey, can I host this on my own Azure tenancy within the within your own enterprise, then you can choose to go through Enterprise Elite, and which gives all bells and whistles within the NSP functionality. So what you need to do is, to understand this further, all you need to do is contact one of them or leave your contact information, and we will contact you and we'll come to you answering your questions. Meanwhile, any questions there that is of interest?
Yeah, Ranga,
Yep.
I think there is some question regarding the concern to backup M365 in Azure. I mean, both are in Azure. So there is a concern about that.
All right. So as you can see, the LRS is there, which means that we'll be in a different availability zones, which means that now historically, not all availability zones would go down, but if everything goes down, obviously you're down. But multiple availability zones are there and they are getting replicated. So we haven't seen any downside from that perspective. So if you see that as a threat, then geo redundancy is something, or enterprise plus is something that you can look out, where you can put it under a different geo unless data sovereignty comes in as a hurdle for you. So that's another way to look at and transfer the data.
On that point,
Yeah.
Ranga, the other benefit this serves is, from an organization point of view, you want to have the cloud provider to be certified as well as compliant to all of your internal regulations. Now, this being one of the biggest points of discussion, can I or am I allowed to host my content or my data on a cloud platform? Now, once you've migrated to Office 365 or M365, your organization has already done that initial certification. So you're not really adding another level of complexity of getting any other cloud platform to be certified, and making sure that your LRS as well as your redundancy assures you that even if there is a part downtime in the cloud infrastructure, you're still assured that you can use your kind of backed up data from the other availability zone. So that's something that we've heard as a feedback, and something that works with backups and Office 365 being in the same Azure foundation.
Correct.
Back to you,
No, that's absolutely right. Now, having said that, I've seen other environments as well. For instance, I've seen a large enterprise which has got a multi-geo presence, but they have a single O365 tenancy. I've seen that. And then I have seen smaller enterprises. It's still an enterprise grade, but they have got multi-geos and multi-O365 tenancies to support their data sovereignty requirements. Now, we support both these extremes end to end. It doesn't matter where it is. We have the ability to support, protect, and still support the data sovereignty requirements. All right. So with that, I'll head to the demo aspect of NetBackup SaaS Protect. All right. So let me know if you can see my screen. All good, Amit? Screen is coming through well. Okay. So that's a NetBackup SaaS Protect screen. So first up, I'll go through the administration component of it. So here I can look through the dashboard and say what site I'm in. So I'm in Southeast Asia, and then I can go dig further there to find out what storages or what stores are there. So I have got multiple stores. What is the storage size? And I get further analytics about how the volumes are based on versions, multi versions that we can do, how it is storing, and so on. So you get very good analytics or granular analytics there. Now I can also go through and do certain other things. So if I have any personally identifiable information that I need to achieve, so I can do that. And then now LRS and GRS. So depending upon whether it is enterprise or enterprise plus, I could select different options there as to which one to do. And all the data is stored on a hot tier by default. You have the option to move it to a cool tier, up to you. But that option is available. Everything is stored in the hot tier, and then you get to support multi versions. Now this is again another feature that is I wouldn't say unique to the market, but we play it very, very well. So yeah, I can enable this feature, and I can store multi versions, and I can store a specific version if I need to. And again, there are many other aspects to it. So what sort of metadata we collect. So it's huge. So the amount of functionalities that you see is fantastic. So a lot of attributes that you can do within this. And then I get to see the connectors. So what connectors are there? So there are certain connectors. So these are all configured. Now our professional services can help you do this, or you can create your own connectors. It's very simple, wizard driven. So you select what connector you want to set up, and then you go through the wizard process. So those are the wizard processes. So it collects the information, you define what sort, and define the scheduling and so on. Now, as I said, you can create any number of connectors. You're not restricted to one connector to one workload. So for within a workload, I could create multiple connectors there. So that's from an administration perspective. Then once the backup happen according to the schedules, now you will see that information. You can, if I select a particular connector, and I will see what's happening within those functionalities. So, and you can also have the option. You also have the option to export it to a CSV. Let's say you're aggregating it to a central portal, and you want to use APIs, or you want to send this to another location, um, uh, like an analytics functionality. You can also do that. So you can aggregate it, so export it to a CSV and look at centralized reporting and so on. Now that's from an administration perspective. Now once the backups happen, obviously the next thing that comes is the discovery aspect of it. So people want to search their data, people want to restore their data. Now while restores are good, data searching is equally important in today's world. In today's world of regulatory compliance and digital compliance that we are talking about, everyone wants to have the ability to go look for information. The reason is there are multiple collaboration tools. So there is Box, there is Slack, there is there is Salesforce, there's Bloomberg. If it is financial institutions, there's Teams. Now data is getting generated at a massive rate. So people are talking, people are sharing information. Now, more than a restore, when we talk about Teams, how many times would you restore from Teams? When I ask this question, I hardly get an answer. No more than 1 or 2 times in the last year. But how many times you would wanted to search through the data to know who has done what, or is it are they following a business compliance, or is it regulatory compliance? Is the organization following up? That's when they need this most. So discovery is fantastic there. So if I want to look up at anything, I can do those. So for instance, let's say I'm looking for some kind of a data. So let's say I'll say payroll. So I'm looking for this. Now payroll would come across all the users. So let's say I'll take mine own okay. So this is my account. Well, I'm not Diego. So this is the account that I use. Now I do a search. Now it looks for payroll everywhere across the board, across the content. So it could be in Teams, it could be in email, it could be in SharePoint, it could be in OneDrive. It looks across the board, as you can see, different icons. Now there is something that is of interest to discovery. So for some legal case, or for security or HR and so on. Now what I've done is I've created a case here. Now I can select that, and then I can add it to a case. So I give a name, and then I can add it to an existing case. And whether it is one time only, or do I want to look for daily, it all depends on situations, requirements, and so on. So now whether you want to put a hold on these, so whether you want to make it immutable, so until the case is resolved, even though it meets certain retention criteria, it should not delete that information. So I can add it to a case, and once I add it to a case, now I can do through the searches. I can keep adding whatever that is matching the criteria. So let's say insider trading as another example. So who is talking about insider trading? So is it just in Teams, just in email, or in OneDrive? So we don't know. So whenever there is a compliance or regulatory kind of stuff that comes into picture, compliance is something that we need, and how they can achieve that is through discovery. Okay, so the third part is restore. Now this we know, we want to restore it, restore anywhere, or restore back to original location, restore it to an alternate location. So you make a decision, or depending upon the situation, you want to restore it. Now I can select a particular set of emails, multi-email, single email, or a folder and so on, and then I can do a restore. I can download it right there, or I can restore it. I can also do a preview if I want to, if I have the rights, because this is all role-based access control. So if you have appropriate rights, you can preview it. So ideally, you don't want, let's say I have an operational team doing restores. Obviously, we don't want to give preview rights, because it could be sensitive. So they have the ability to restore. Now restore any location or to a specific location, specific email. Now, what if this user has quit the organization, or there is some kind of a review and HR wants this? Based on the approval methodology, you could restore it to that mailbox or some other mailbox, or to a groups or a team's mailbox. Depending on the needs, you could restore that information. Now, this is one way I can do that within the console. The other way is I get an additional utility that you can download directly, and I can restore it to multiple locations. So for instance, now I've selected this. Now I can select single items, specific items, or based on certain metadata. Now this is something that you would love, or especially when you want advanced restores, you can work on some specific values and you can restore it based on the metadata. All right, let's not go there today, but what we can do is we can restore specific items or all items. Now I can restore it to multiple different things. So all of a sudden, my ability to restore to multiple different locations are available. So I can restore it to a PST or SharePoint collection or Azure Blob Storage S3 or local restore and so on. So what I've done is I have done restores locally in my temp folder. So I've done that. So there you go. So I've restored there, and I've also restored into my S3 bucket. So I've got my restores there and I've stored it there. So depending on the situation, I could restore it to multiple, ability to restore to any location, or flexibility. Flexibility is what we're looking for, and that is available. Right. Finally, coming into self-service. Now, this is something that, as I said, I've been hearing in the industry. So people want self-service. They want to allow users to fend for themselves in many cases. So as a user, I can only restore my own data. So I'm my own user. So I can preview my own stuff. So I can preview the data. I can download the data right there, or I can restore the data wherever I need to. I can restore that particular data, but I can only do it for myself. I can't do it for others unless I've been given appropriate rights or roles that have been assigned to that user can do the restores for themselves. So in a nutshell, I would want to stop there. So we talk about deep integration into AD, which you can say flexible to deploy this in your own tenancy across multiple geos, but have a single federated search is a fantastic capability. So searching across multiple tenants, no matter where they have got this NSP, ability to search, maybe the HR or security person is sitting at one particular destination, so they can have the ability to look at multiple different connectors, search through, get the data for their needs, for their compliance and regulatory needs, and the big functionality and end user performance. As I said, we support very high performance to 6 terabytes a day or beyond, depending upon your needs. We support that performance. Backup performance is there, and incremental backups, encryption, security, all the bells and whistles are there for you. So please ensure you talk to your local representative, or make sure you send us an email, and we're happy to get back to you. Amit?
Thank you, Ranga. I think Ranga, there are a couple of questions around the level of integration or operations with Office 365. So maybe if you could just show the configuration piece, how we connect into Office 365.
So with the new connector, so you get to Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive, and Exchange. So similarly, what you can also do is you can set up Box, Slack, Google Drives. So these are the ones, and then there'll be Salesforce coming into it. So right now you're only seeing these four is because my account has been given a role to access only OneDrive. So I've been restricted to do this. But if it were to be a global admin, so they'll be able to see other connectors as well, like Salesforce or Box or Slack and so on. So So the compatibility is there, and you go through the wizard and configure.
Correct, good. And so from a restore path, I did see a couple of questions coming into what are the requirements for restore. Now, as you just demonstrated, there are two ways of restoring. One is in-place restore versus, a restore into either an on-prem storage or a cloud-based storage. So,
Or PST. So
correct. So if you could just, walk that process again and also talk through where does bandwidth concerns come in, where do egress costs may come in, and what's the experience like?
very good question. So look, restores are supported within the portal. Now these restores, either you can restore it to as an admin, I can restore it to back into the mailbox, which is the typical requirement or the use case scenario. The other is, what if this user has quit the organization, but we have the data and you want to restore it to another recoverable mailbox. So specify that mailbox here. So give that SMTP ID and then restore it to that particular mailbox. So those are the options provided within the portal. But what we also give you is the an export utility, which is an extended functionality. So typical use cases you can use within the console, but you have extended functionalities, or you want to search through, as I said, through attributes, or it could be a complex restore process based on specific identification. We also support that. So you could go through these and then restore it to anywhere you want, file folders, user mailboxes, PST, and so on. Maybe you want to give it as a PST, hand it over to a third-party legal team. So that could be the use case scenario. In those situations, you could do those and export it.
Great. And just on that, Ranga, the restore is still driven by the role-based access control.
Correct.
So if you are an administrator, you probably get a chance to restore for everyone. But if you are a user, you can still be restricted to restore anything. So some users, if an example is that if some users are not allowed to restore anything, then we can.
Yeah, they can. They can control it. It's all role-based access control. So everything is based on the roles. So what roles that person or that particular user has been given, based on those roles, it's a cumulative functionality. It accumulates those roles and provides the ability to restore. So typically, as an end user, they can only restore their own data. They can view their data. They are free to do that. But there could be a situation where my manager could have access to multiple users, depending upon, not in a day-to-day functionality. Maybe a user in my manager's team quit, and then my manager wants to access that data for such specific reasons and restore it elsewhere. They can request, open a ticket, and somebody assigns this, validates, provides them a role for a stipulated time. They perform that restore and the role ends. Things like that. So yeah, there is a specific process, but is it possible? Absolutely, yes.
Great. And this is tightly integrated with your Active Directory. So
Correct.
as long as you can create a group with the right level of user access, you can map that group to a role in our solution.
Yes, I can define the roles and manage permissions. That's correct.
Brilliant. All right. And there was an interesting extension to this question on, now that the restores can be done at the user level, what are our options if you want to restore the restored location? Restrict the restored locations.
So with self-service, there is only two options: either restore it to original location or download. So only two options are there. So probably we can. I don't know if we can disable download. Maybe we can. I'll cross verify that. We should be able to, but always able to restore back to original location. So this is something that's always there. So example is, let's say O365, there is no legal hold, for example, let's say, and the user has deleted that information, but user knows that there is a backup that's happening, and the administration has shared all the information. Now user can log into SaaS Protection and restore their data back into original mailbox. Simple use case. But the user has deleted, but he doesn't want to restore it to original location, just wants to download that for a quick review or something. That's also possible. So nothing beyond this. But if they want anything beyond this, they'll have to raise a ticket, and it has to go through a proper process.
Agreed. Brilliant. All right. So I think we've done the restore part quite well. The other set of questions were around integration with third-party products like Splunk.
Right. So now this supports API calls. So that's given. So either you can do API queries and you can integrate it with third-party products like that, or export it to CSV, aggregate it into a particular location at a scheduled time. The Splunk processes go through, they scan, and then they put it in a nice views there in their analytics portal. So that's another way of doing it. So multiple ways to achieve this.
Brilliant. And just an extension of that, what are the level of notifications and alerts? You know, I know we clicked on it in the administration part, but if you could just go back and show what type of alerts and notifications we can expect.
Look, every time there is something touched, the admin will go get an email. So security is an integrated part of it. So every time there is a change done, so you'll get an alert, or those specific groups will get an alert. So additionally, there you go. So they can also enable external user access, which is very cagey part. So you don't want this to happen, but this could happen to maybe third-party lawyers or something. They want to access it. That could be given as well. So yes, every change or every restore that's been done, an alert would go to a set of users, and that is configurable.
Brilliant. All right. So that's good. There has been one question around the licensing model, the small and the 3 enterprise elite licensing. And there is a mention around high speed in part of the enterprise. Can you just elaborate on what that high speed performance means?
Now, this is something that is proprietary to our design structure. So it is our proprietary architecture that makes it simple. So you could say that, hey, everything is O365, and what do you do? So it's the way we work with, or the way we query the O365 to get that speed. So that's what is unique to us. So it's the architecture that makes it high speed.
Brilliant. All right. While I look at other questions, David, did you have any questions that we want Ranga to look at?
Yeah, the question is more on the license for small and medium-sized business. Where is going to? Is there any roadmap for that? I mean, currently is we aim for the enterprise, right? And there's a question about that.
No, excellent question indeed. It is something that every small business or small to medium business are looking forward to. Now, this is something that has definitely been worked through a product team, and there would be announcements going forward on that. So at this time, unfortunately, there is a minimum threshold that we're looking at, and we support those, but there will be more announcements in the coming days to support these environments.
Yeah, thank you. And there's a other question regarding the console that inbuilt with ransomware protection, or does this protection provide option to roll back data prior to ransomware attack?
It's not of a rollback. So what we have is we have an immutable copy, which means that if there is any in the case of a ransomware attack, we'll be able to restore it quickly. multi restores are possible.
Yes.
Okay,
So yeah. Okay.
Go ahead, Amit.
no, David, if you had a question, finish your thoughts, and then I'll
Yeah.
take that one.
Yeah. I think there's some of the customer is still questioning about the cost of restoring data and the bandwidth. I mean, when they want to restore outside of the Azure environment, it will cost them or not. Yeah.
There will be an egress cost if they want to go outside of Azure. So
All right.
that's definitely there.
Hmm.
So that's a part of any cloud. So whenever you're doing it within the cloud, it's okay. But if there is outside of it, so there will be a cost
Yes.
that they have to be aware of. Yes, correct.
Okay.
Great. So the other question that came in was around authentication, and there are a few of them in terms of what is the multi-factor authentication strategy. And maybe before I hand it over to you, Ranga, I'm just trying to understand this question a little more, because when you're looking at your Azure Active Directory or your Office M365 integration, that is predominantly inbuilt with its own single sign-on model. So multi-factor authentication as well as single sign-on is a part of your Azure AD configuration. So as many large organizations that I've seen, that is the preferred model where the MFA as well as the SSO is a part of Azure AD, and then NetBackup SaaS Protection can straight up work with the same model. So unless there is an external multi-factor authentication platform that you're looking for, maybe is that the question? And while we get a clarification, Ranga, did you want to add more on MFA?
No, that's perfect. What you said is absolutely
correct. Cool, but I'll still wait and see if there was a clarification. The other.
Meanwhile, for the question that David posed, so is there an egress cost? So there would be, depending upon where you do it, and you can track those as well. So how's the egress flow for all content or specific content that you can look for that info?
Brilliant. Sounds good. So how are we doing on time? We've got about 8 minutes, so that's good. So David has done a phenomenal job answering about 46 odd questions. We have 7 questions open, out of which David is already approaching or answering them. On the ones that I think we have answered, worth bringing out a couple of questions that I have seen. One was, what is the flexibility? I mean, can I bring in my Azure account as part of the solution?
Yes, you can. Excellent. So yes, you can, but that is grouped under the Enterprise Elite license. So what we do is, again, it is a SaaS model, but it is something that you already pay for Azure, so it is in your tenancy, and we can do that as well. So that's possible, but that falls under the Enterprise Elite model of license.
Brilliant. The other couple of questions were on the roadmap. When do we expect Salesforce to come in, and any other insights that we can share at the moment in terms of the strategy for future?
So unfortunately, I don't have all the details, but yes, Salesforce is definitely coming soon. That I can definitely confirm. It's coming, and you will see those communications happening this quarter.
Correct. And a little more broader question, could you highlight other use case of NSP besides Microsoft 365, like unstructured workload file data backup, example, fax file backup in healthcare? So probably not a very specific to NSP, but a broader question on unstructured data backup.
No, very well framed question. So yes, we support it. So while the primary focus for NSP is SaaS workloads, we can back up on-prem files. So there are many use cases for that. so we can archive the data, and that's the extension to the NSP capability. That's definitely possible. Glad you asked that question. Yeah, happy to discuss further. Please contact our sales teams, or you let us know, leave your contact information, and we can work with you to explain further.
Yes, that's correct, Rang. And I think we've done a good job looking at the console. If you could flip back to the slide deck and bring up the last slide, is where we have our contact information. So for all the questions that we have answered, there are some I think which need a deep dive, and there are places where we would be more than happy to give you a high level walkthrough of what our product portfolio could do for you. So please feel free to write to us on this email, which is asr.team@veritas.com. And not just NSP, but we're happy to walk through the overall data management and data compliance portfolio, and we're happy to build in the solution for that. With that said, I think we've got about 4 minutes now. I've got the housekeeping things done. I will pick another couple of questions so that we use the time to the max. One good question that I'm seeing, Ranga, coming in a couple of times is in terms of logical separation. Is there an option of logically separating or air gapping the backups within NSP?
Absolutely. So very good question. And that's where the geo redundancy comes into picture. That's the So Enterprise Plus licensing gives you that ability, and you can do that.
Correct. That's great. And the other one was, can the restore go, now that we have seen the restore paths, can the restore go across other public clouds?
Depends on how you see it. So if it is Azure or AWS S3, yes. But how is that cloud getting, if they can see it as a local something, then yes. Otherwise, no, it has specific brands of clouds that we support today.
AWS Glacier being a specific question.
No, not at this
Yeah,
time.
I mean, Glacier is something that has the cold tier kind of a model. Now, where we are looking at storing these backups for now is an object storage. So, getting into blobs or getting into S3 or S3 buckets in general is where the direction is. But going to Glacier is something that actually goes back to the retention policy. And maybe it's probably a discussion or a deep dive discussion in terms of what is your retention on the Office 365 or M365 content. I mean, if I look at from a typical archiving point of view, you're looking at about 3 years or maybe 7 years, but then does that translate as is for backups? Because you're taking multiple copies. So it's a broader conversation. I like the direction of going to cool tier or cold tier, but let's reach out to us, and we will definitely help you formulate how that solution could look like. Cool. All right, so we've got about 2 minutes. I think we will pause here on the questions. Thank you all for your support and for the brilliant interactive session. We've got more than 55 odd questions, so thank you so much. And we really look forward to hearing from you in terms of A, did the session meet your expectations? B, did you find something that needs a double click or a deep dive, and we'd be happy to schedule a follow-up. And of course, if there are any pending questions that we've not answered, we will proactively come back to you with responses. And having said that, I'm really thankful that Ranga, you could run a comprehensive demonstration for us. So well done. Thank you for taking time. And Devid, absolutely magical, mate. You've done 55 odd questions in less than an hour. So 2 questions in a minute is not easy.
Very
so
fast
well done.
fingers.
Yeah, it's fast fingers, Mr. Fast Fingers. Well done. So thank you all for joining in, and really appreciate your support. And until next time, stay in touch. Get to us, write to us if there's anything we could help with. and stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.